All right, recording has started, and this is the May 2nd, 2024 Crossplane Community Meeting. So I will go ahead and drop a link into the Zoom chat right now. That is a direct link to the agenda document, and if folks want to add themselves to the attendees list or add a topic that they want to discuss today as well, then that is open and available. We've got a bunch of stuff on the agenda, but most of it's status related stuff. I don't think there's a ton of deeper discussion. So there's probably room for anything that anybody wants to talk about, and do feel super, super free to add whatever you want to the document. We'll get through it. All right, so let's jump in to releases and milestones first, as usual. Since the last community meeting, I think this is the first meeting since we shifted to a monthly cadence. We had been doing every 2 weeks before, and we decided as a group that a monthly cadence would not really be to our detriment. So now we're meeting at this new frequency here, and there's always plenty of news and things going on since we met 1 month ago, basically. So we got 2 patch releases out. The release notes are linked here, and folks can go and dive into those for more deep information on them. I think the bigger fix there is that there is a fix for, that's worth noting. There is a fix for in native patch and transform that kind of puts the way that patching is performed back to the way that it should be. So basically, I would capture right here, right, restores previous long-standing behavior, essentially rectifies a regression. So things should be back to the way they have been there. We patched 1.15 and we patched 1.14 with that behavior as well. And then that obviously would then be part of 1.16 coming up as well.
When was the regression introduced?
I think it was introduced in the 1.14 branch, so 1.13 was not affected, and so that's why we didn't patch that one, I believe.
But it was 1.14.0. It was in from the beginning of 1.14.
I think so. I cannot remember off the top of my head though. All right. So all eyes then are on the next big release here of 1.16. So we are scheduled in early May here, which we are now in. We are currently at feature freeze right now, and we are looking to start code freeze, I think pretty much any day now. There's a couple issues that I need to catch up with some folks on to get some status on them and see if they're going to be landing soon, and see if we should be continuing to wait to enter code freeze until those have landed. But we are very, very, very close to code freeze. And so once we enter code freeze, we're essentially 1 week, potentially a little bit less from the actual release. So within, I'd say probably by the end of next week, the 1.16 release will happen. But we'll keep a close eye on that. And while a reminder here that while we always do have general date guidelines, we always do keep an eye on prioritization for quality-driven releases. So if there's fixes or things that we feel still need to get in as appropriate and as triaging dictates, we will do that to make sure that the release is going out as high quality as we can make it. So I think something to note here then is we just take a quick look at the 1.16 release board. I think that it's pretty up to date with status of things. One thing that's not up to date is that some of these things that are in progress, we won't be holding the release for them, so they will then essentially be addressed in the 1.17 timeframe instead. I think the main thing that I wanted to close on with Nick is, where is it? Oh yeah, this one right here. This issue 5639, I think, is the one thing. Is Nick on the call today, by the way? I don't know. I know it doesn't look like he is, so I will follow up async with him. But I think this is the one issue here that I'm still not quite sure about. This would finish the complete story of making it possible to safely upgrade from existing compositions and existing resources to one that you fully uses server-side apply. So there's been a bunch of work to kind of fix some of the feedback we have from the alpha implementation of supporting server-side apply in the claim controller, and this would finish off the whole thing there to make it a smooth process. We are not going to mature server-side apply functionality to beta in this release, but this would kind of get it more fully baked, and then over the next milestone, then we can make a call about maturing it to 1.17. But it'd be great to have this in the release as well, so we have the full story there. and we could bake that in, during the 1.17 timeframe. So I will catch up with Nick on what the status of that is, or how we can include that in or not if we make that call. And then I think that's pretty much the last thing that's preventing us from going ahead and calling it code freeze. I wanted to check in with folks here on the call then of anything on your minds for 1.16, anything on the board here, anything that's not on the board that you want to call out as well that may be important. All right. Then I will continue following up, as I mentioned, with Nick and the other Crossplane maintainers then to try to get us to a code freeze and be the one step closer to getting the final 1.16 release out. If folks are curious, then probably the best place to follow along with the release itself is in the Crossplane/release repo. So the release repository in the Crossplane org, we have a tracking issue there, number 9 for the 1.16 release. This is not quite up to date, but I will update that of the issues that we're scoping down to get to the code freeze and such, and then the checklist of all the items that happen there. So if you want all the fine-grained granularity of everything going into the release, this is the best place to do this. Otherwise, we'll keep everyone updated in Slack and Twitter and stuff for the more noteworthy milestones that more people would care about. So link is here in the agenda doc if you're interested in it. All right. So then I wanted to call out to some of the bigger designs and big features that are in flight. There is a whole bunch of design work going on for these two right here that I have highlighted on my screen. One of them is around how can compositions essentially surface up the relevant error information to higher level users that are using claims. That is a bunch of discussion. Dalton and Nick have been focusing on that and kind of driving that towards an API and an experience that they're feeling better about. It's too big to land in 1.16 still, so it's being pushed to 1.17, but that's a fairly impactful one that I think will really improve the ability for folks that are using the composition machinery of Crossplane to really understand the right errors, the right sort of details about what's happening underneath to be able to move things forward when there are issues. And then there's also a big effort that's being pushed by Teresh where we're trying to land on what experience do we want for exposing status in Crossplane. We've had a long-standing design for particular status conditions that we expose. There's discussion about should we add a new one for updating, and that kind of naturally brings the discussion of if we should support case status or not. So we're kind of going around on that right now, and it's a bigger effort than we originally thought of. Maybe just adding one particular field. It's kind of a big discussion about how do we do status in general. So super kudos to continue driving that, because it is a pretty big thing, and definitely appreciate the effort on that one. But it'll be a very impactful one no matter what, I think. And I also wanted to call out that this list is a really good place for folks to understand what are issues that are impactful and that they can get involved with. So these two links here both show unassigned P0, P1 issues. That's a scope 2 1.16, so let's remove that. But this is P0, P1 highly impactful issues that are unassigned. So that's definitely something useful for folks that want to roll up their sleeves and get involved there. And then also I went and did a big pass of good first issues as well. And so here's a whole big list of issues that may be good for people new to contributing to Crossplane to get involved with these issues to get started as well. So I'll keep these links in the agenda doc every week, basically, as we go through this stuff. And then we'll be exposing that in other places too. But I wanted to call this out because this may be some places for more folks to get involved that haven't gotten a chance to yet. All right, that's everything for Crossplane releases and the Crossplane milestones. Before I go to providers, anything else that folks wanted to bring up in terms of, getting stuff in for 1.16, 1.17 plans, all that sort of stuff? All right. So Jean said he was not able to make it today. I think we're actually a little bit light on participants and attendees today because a lot of folks are on holidays right now, but and John being one of them. So I wanted to call out a couple things in his place. Yeah, I think maybe I'll just go ahead and do it. So obviously, as usual, we have a number of releases for providers and across the ecosystem here that folks might want to check out. All the release notes are linked here, so you can keep up to date with those. I did want to call out Provider Helm 0.18.1. And if you're on the call before we started the recording, this is exactly one of the things I was mentioning to Hassan a couple times recently, solving some issues while I'm asleep, and I can't figure them out. I go to sleep, Hassan's got it figured out. So this fixes a long-standing issue in Provider Helm where if you're using an OCI registry as the location for your chart, you cannot do an anonymous pull of the chart. So, if you don't, for a public anonymous registry, you would not be able to essentially install the Helm chart from there at all. Hassan figured that out and got to the bottom of it, and along with some community contributions as well, and that is fixed, and that basic functionality has been restored in Provider Helm, and definitely wanted to call that out because it's pretty impactful. And then in terms of other things going on with providers, so Ezgi did a lot of work on adding metrics and kind of a basic observability stuff to what's going on with managed resources and time to readiness, and a number of them that are in ready or sync status and all that sort of stuff. And then that has been taken and put into the Upjet framework as a whole. So going forward, providers generated using the Upjet framework will be able to have all of that good, happy observability stuff. Let me see if I can find a quick link to the basic contents. Yeah, so here we go. So then like by group value kind. So then like for each resource type, you'll be able to see a number of them that are ready, that are synced, like first time to be when they're being reconciled, and first time until they're ready, how long it's taking to delete, if they're, how long it's taking to detect drift and correct it, etc. So these are super, super useful resources to understand a little bit more, something we've been missing for a while, honestly, to be able to get that insight and observability into what's happening with Crossplane's managed resources. So that being finished in the Crossplane runtime and then introduced into the Upjet framework, so that all providers can benefit from it, is definitely news to share there. And I also wanted to call out that Jean has started a special interest group for Upjet in general. So I linked here the agenda doc for everything that's being discussed there. And if you want to get involved with the Upjet framework and the main way to generate and create Crossplane providers, then joining that SIG or participating in the discussion on Slack, joining the SIG meetings, etc., will be really, really useful for everybody. So feel free to join them.
One Upjet related topic I wanted to mention that's going to be at least potentially relevant more broadly is that I think there was some discussion, I think it came up from Dem or Alper around the implementation of spec.init provider, that there may be some problems that are actually impossible to implement the way that was spec'd as in the XRM using the new like Terraform plugin framework and SDK. And so I don't think that discussion has, I think it's barely started in terms of like what we want to do about that. But if you have strong feelings about that, I think Nick had mentioned that that was something he wanted to participate in. So connect with folks in the SIG Upjet about that.
Matt, and is there already an issue that you could find a link to and throw it in the agenda doc, or put it in the chat here so I could put it in the agenda doc? Because that sounds useful. And I haven't heard too much about it yet myself.
That's a good question. I'll go look for one and then I can add it to the doc.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you, dude. All right. So then let's go ahead on forward into the community topics section here. So as usual, we've got a whole bunch of interesting content, blog posts and videos and talks and papers and whatnot, what have you, on Crossplane and related to Crossplane. So all those links are available for you there. You can check those out at your leisure. And then, and that reminds me as well, is that Carlos's idea about having an awesome Crossplane repo is still something we definitely want to do. Just haven't taken the steps to enable it yet. But in the meantime, we're collecting all these resources, and having a curated place to discover and find them will be really helpful long term. That being said, I also wanted to call out a particular event, a community event that's going on soon. So Level Up with Crossplane is what it's called, and it's happening in 5 days, it looks like, so on May 7th. So you can learn a bunch of Crossplane maintainers, contributors, etc., are giving talks about things, various things in the Crossplane ecosystem that would be useful for folks to learn. So feel free to click on these links here and register and check out that event. All right, so I think that what I'm seeing here, we've announced this at the last community meeting about plans to deprecate the built-in external secret store support that we have in Crossplane, and there's an issue open about it, and then we started receiving some feedback from folks on it as well. So let's see. Yeah, so more feedback has been coming in on it. And as of now, no steps have been taken to formally deprecate this feature and functionality in the Crossplane code base. So I do need to sync with Nick on this and see what's going to happen for 1.16, make a decision. But as of now, steps have not been taken for this. So I can see a possibility where 1.16 ships, and we still think about this a little bit further with the feedback we're getting. And we can make a call in a later release. I could see that as being a possibility, but we have to close on that before we ship 1.16 and make a decision. All right. Okay, cool. So then here's a new section to the community meeting agenda here. So the steering committee, since we've expanded the steering committee a few months back, adding Bob and Brian to it as well, we are having regular steering committee meetings. Now, while those meetings are private, we do want to take the opportunity to share outcomes of discussions and decisions and news, et cetera, from that. So in every community meeting, we have this section here to kind of share a summary of what the steering committee has been discussing in the regular meetings. So that's the goal of this. One thing that came out of it pretty quickly was that we realized there's not really a great path for people to discover how to get in touch with the steering committee if they need to for any reason. So we opened up the PR pretty quickly to go ahead and add contact information of if you have any needs from the steering committee whatsoever, and feel free to liberally use that as needed. It's kind of a catch-all for everything in the Crossplane ecosystem. So feel free to reach out at any time. Always happy to help people and help everyone be successful. But there are two main options. There's a steering committee Slack channel that you can go to, and also there's a steering committee mailing list as well. Both those are public. Anyone can join and contact us there. So feel free to use that if there's anything that we can help out with. And you can find that linked in the governance document at the root of the Crossplane repo if you forget it later on. Other than that, though, we did discuss license exceptions. This is a topic that's coming up especially as Upbound donated the Upjet framework and the Upjet generated providers to the Crossplane community. That brings in some licenses that are currently MPL licenses. And then also, while we're going through the graduation process, there's more scrutiny on that as well. So the CNCF requires you to have a exception given by the governing board if you are using MPL licenses, essentially. And so Jean has taken the steps to open an official request for an exception to be granted. And we'll keep folks up to date on the outcome of that. But it's an important thing that we need to get a resolution on. And then also related to graduation, the technical oversight committee made some big changes that I think I talked about last time, but they are rolling them out to everyone now. So we have learned that the TOC made some big changes to the graduation process. And it does impact projects that are that have their applications already opened and are in progress. So we did our whole application, we did all the writing, all the diligence, all the documentation and all that sort of stuff. And the TOC does require us to go ahead and update that to the new format. So just the only thing to note here is that we have more work to do. So we'll do that legwork. We'll do the new, writings and the new diligence documents. We'll do all that work, no problem. And it'll just take time to do that, which isn't really a big problem in the grand scheme of things because the TOC does have a very, very long backlog, and we are not going to be looked at with higher scrutiny for a couple of months at least. So we have time to do this. We will do this, and nothing from the changes in the requirements that they're putting onto projects are things that we can't meet. So nothing to worry about here except for got more work to do. So that's about it there. Bob, I saw that you were in the meeting as well. Was there anything else from steering committee perspective that you wanted to add to what I said?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered it.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Cool, folks. So I wanted to call out, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I wanted to call out that contributor enablement is something that is really important, I think, to the community and the Crossplane project as a whole, and something that we're getting more serious about, and something that we'll be taking even more steps on in the 1.17 timeframe. So basically, like you could think of a theme of this is that contributing to Crossplane should be easy. There's a number of obstacles in the way there, and there's some difficulties for folks want to get involved and contribute in a number of ways to the project that can be kind of difficult. So I've opened an issue. This would be a roadmap level issue. We'll focus on it in 1.17, and it's kind of like, hey, removing the obstacles and putting some structure into place to help contributors be more effective. So just making it easier to get involved and to help out. I have been absolutely thrilled with some of the efforts by community members to drive big designs recently and go for big things. But that's not the only thing that this project needs, right? There's lots of other different issues and ways to contribute of different size scope that are super appreciated. So this is an issue here that it's tracking all the ways in which we can kind of make it easier for everyone to get involved. And then if people have ideas on that, feel free to add those as a comment here or share your experience in any way. I'd love to hear ways that people are having trouble to contribute, and then figure out ways to remove those obstacles as well. And I mentioned that one of the first steps we did is that we took a pass through, right, the good first issues. So there's now like almost 20 or so issues for folks that want to get involved, but haven't really done too much yet to get your feet wet with those. So that's one of the first steps, and there'll be more to come. Is Philippe on the call here? I don't think I think he's one of those folks that is on holidays as well. I'm one of the many folks that's on holidays right now. So I'll just speak to this real quick. So we use Renovate in a project called Renovate in the Crossplane ecosystem that essentially automatically looks at all the dependencies in the Crossplane project and keeps them up to date with new releases and security fixes and patches and all that sort of stuff. I don't know how it works very well myself. So I reached out to Philippe, who's kind of implemented a lot of it, and Mehmet has been helping out with that recently too. But I asked to kind of get together to kind of share some of this knowledge, because I don't think it's really written down anywhere, and it's kind of important to keep the project running healthily. So there is a brown bag session that will happen on May 16th that Philippe will be running, and he'll kind of walk us through how we use Renovate, how the system is set up, how to get involved with on a regular basis, keeping those PRs flowing and getting dependencies updated and all that sort of stuff. So I think this is particularly useful, not just to core Crossplane maintainers, but it's also useful to folks that have providers. Like the provider ecosystem is pretty darn big, and there's I think more than like how many is it? It's like 100 something maintainers of provider repos out there in the Crossplane contributor organization. So this could be useful for you all as well to understand how Renovate works and how you can use it in your provider repos to keep your dependencies updated over time. I've been thrilled with the way that it's been working for us in core Crossplane. So this could be useful if you all want to join it. So go ahead, and if you want to join it, you can click on the community calendar link there, and then you can see on May 16th. And then I think you can just like add it to your own calendar from there. It is, I think it's I don't know how many years Google has had this interface for public calendars, but they obviously haven't updated it in at least 15 years. And it still works the same way it always has. So let's see, May 16th here, the Renovate Brown Bag. Yeah, feel free to add that to your personal calendar as well, and we'll see you there. Okay, and then the last thing I have before we go to something more interesting with Ahmed is that I just recently got some reports from folks, I think it was Provider Palette that mentioned it first, is that code coverage uploads, like when we do the CI/CD stuff runs on a PR, it will do code coverage analysis and then it'll upload the results to a website called codecov.io. We've heard recently that more people are seeing this take a exceptionally long time, and this might be related to changes that CodeCov has made to no longer allow anonymous uploads, I think it was, or tokenless uploads, something like that. So if you on your PRs see that the CodeCov step is taking a significant time, do let me know about it, because I think at some point we might need to figure out like a story for the whole ecosystem and how we approach this. I don't know what that story is yet. So more data points from folks that, hearing that people are affected or whatever can help us prioritize it and help us get to a solution too. So if you see anything taking a long time with CodeCov, let us know and we'll try to get a solution together. All right. That was a lot of me talking. So let's do something more interesting here now than just listening to Jared talk. Ahmed, are you ready to kind of walk us through your Crossplane Bootstrapper stuff?
Yes, I would like to share my screen for that.
Yep. I just went ahead and stopped sharing mine, so you should be able to show yours now.
Okay, that's great. Okay, that should work. At least you should see my Firefox.
Yes, I see Firefox. Yep, exactly.
Okay, first of all, let's start. Just a quick introduction about me. My name is Ahmed Abu Zaid. I'm Egyptian living in Berlin, Germany, and contributing for open source for a quite long time now. And I'm not that old. I just started a bit early in university, and also like 12 plus years of professional experience, hands-on experience in DevOps, having master in data engineering from Edinburgh Napier University, UK. I like a lot of stuff here. You can take a look at them, and specifically interested in Agile and DevOps and Kubernetes. Like I like to do everything in Kubernetes. That's why actually I like to use Crossplane. I technically use Crossplane for almost 2 years now for everything. So I'm using so I can handle my infrastructure. I can handle Kubernetes resources as usual. So it was a great solution. So yeah, I already have the link here. So what is the problem we try to solve? It started from here. Crossplane, as you know, is a cloud native control plane. It works on Kubernetes. That means you need a Kubernetes working in the first place to run Crossplane. And this is like this dilemma is like, okay, how to bootstrap the bootstrapper, or how to monitor the monitoring system, and all of these things. So the community here has a really valid requirement, as we want the easy way to make it. I already I think it's like almost 2 years ago, 1.5 years, also asking for the same thing. And I already did it, but some local thing using kind, using kind, and you create kind cluster locally and then apply stuff, and then it will create another cluster, or this is what I call the management cluster. I will talk about it in a second. But in simply, you have a local cluster, and then you build whatever you want to run, wherever you want to run Crossplane, and there you have this management cluster or GitOps cluster. You can call it anything. So finally, I have some time. I have finished my master and have some time after that, and try to play with to fix this problem, because I already have it and I know how annoying you need to do things. And yeah, bootstrapping happens once every time, every while, or something like this. But I need it as an infrastructure, as a code. I don't want to run commands and sometimes someone else coming and try to do the same commands for you. Having different systems, they having different whatever. It will not work usually. And I started actually from K3D, which is built on top of K3S. is providing more like infrastructure as a code, or like a more providing configuration, if you can say, on other things, other facilities on top of K3D, K3S. It's a great project. If you didn't use it before, if you're still using current, please take a look on this. It's a great, to be honest, and it comes with Ingress already installed. It comes with Helm controller already installed. You can boot a lot of things. So what if I can have a single file for K3D and will bootstrap this local cluster, and it will bootstrap everything. But Helm, not Helm, K3D didn't have this feature till soon. Search for this problem here. And actually, easier way to make it search for pull request. So I wanted one way to make it easy to load files. K3D didn't have that much easier. So I started from here, created a PR, have some nice discussion with the maintainer. He's a really great guy. And we have some ideas what we want to do and all of these things. So you can actually have one file, which is K3D file with all of configuration you want and all of these things. Will not go in much details here. You can check this. It doesn't matter. You don't even need to check this. But it's not released yet. This PR, it's like less than a month, like less than 2 months now, and it's not released yet. So it will be in the next version. And from here we have close this, Crossplane. Crossplane Bootstrapper is simply K3D configuration with this new feature. As you see here, important note, this is not released yet. Wait for 5.7, and then you can use it. So how it works? Pretty simple. You can have actually embedded this file inside this file, but let's make it things clear. So you have one file, you can share it with anyone. It's much easier, but I will make them two files just to make it much easier, much cleaner, at least for me. So I have a file, K3D file, that's what will create a cluster, and we'll simply read this file and put it in some magic path here, or path you need to install something, and it will be installed in servers only. So how this file is actually look like, in fact, it's a Kubernetes manifest, and it's just simply the additional thing. It has Helm chart manifest or kind or custom source, and this is already built in K3D, on K3S actually. So this file will be loaded as it is. It will create a namespace called, so the idea here is, I'm trying to make a full example of bootstrapping a remote GKE cluster in one shot. By initiating Crossplane directly, you just need to do 2 changes here, which are the secrets simply. You can change them, the file, you can recreate them directly as you like, but simply here, the 2 information you need to change: the project ID is a requirement for GCP, another one, credential, which is the GCP service account that will allows you to create GKE cluster. Those are all the information you need to create this cluster. Also, we have another way here. It's another project called Cube Zero, and this Cube Zero meant to use Crossplane as for infrastructure and Argo CD for applications, and you have everything again. That's the idea. I'm using this for doing this for 2 years, and I don't really need to use Terraform directly, which is great. Here it's a bit different. I will still, the link is here. I will not cover this, but the idea here, you load Argo CD, and Argo CD load whatever infrastructure as a code you have. But the idea is simple, the same. You install Crossplane by Helm chart. You give it some configuration of Helm chart, for example, packages. Here I want to install GCP because I'm using GCP most of the time. Could be AWS, could be anything. And also using this configuration, which allows you to make some application like composition, like GKE cluster. You can use your configuration or even the core primitives for Crossplane, doesn't matter. But this is the idea. and configure the provider configuration, and the secret to create GKE cluster in GCP. And here is the cluster, which is this configuration. This kind is coming from simply this guy. And it's already made. You can make your own, but it's the same idea. So I'm using this, I call it management. It will create some management cluster. And from there, also something should install Crossplane, and then this will be my management cluster. This is how I'm using Crossplane for last 2 years, and pretty happy with it. Like not much changes, maybe more dynamic. I will think about Upbound cloud, but for smaller projects are not really needed. But this idea. So if we think we still have some more time, we can have a quick demo. But in general, it's this. You have local cluster, K3D, Helm controller, and manifests. Install Crossplane and install. Once Crossplane installed, you have everything in place. And you can create with anything already Crossplane can do. And it will create this cloud cluster, which I call management. And it will have Crossplane. You could have Argo, CD, doesn't matter. It's up to you. So all that you need, kubectl K3D CLI, clone of this repo, or you just copy it to your repo, or do the changes you need, and editing this configuration according to do whatever you want. And that's the idea. Anyone want to change here and to keep this file updated, dependency update tool like RemoteBot or Dependabot will be super helpful, for example, to keep this updated and keep this local or this bootstrapper thing the same as management cluster. For example, it will update this or this. Super helpful tools. So all that you need, K3D cluster create with this config. It will take 2 minutes or so, depends on your speed, internet connection, and your machine, and you can see the Crossplane system. I will not do much demo here. I can do it, but it's that's the idea. It's you have one file, 2 actually, and you have them as infrastructure as a code. If someone in your team, for example, want to change something here, you can see it, and you can revert it if it has some problems. You want to change the way you, for example, as I said here, I'm installing Crossplane directly. Maybe someone else want to install Argo CD first, then install it. It will install Crossplane as a infrastructure as a code. So it could be different, but it's the most important thing. It's declarative. It's infrastructure as a code stored in Git. You don't need to go through crazy things. I already did it in the crazy way before, and I like this way more. That's it. If you have any questions, I'll feel free to ask, please.
Super
So is
cool.
the idea,
Go
can
ahead,
I ask you a
Matt.
question?
Sure.
Is the idea that you use this local cluster to create your management cluster, and then presumably you shut down your local cluster, and then now is the management cluster managing itself?
Yes, exactly.
So there's so the providers and configuration, the same configuration gets installed into the management cluster that was in the local cluster, and then and that just sort
Yes,
of observes or imports the resources from the cloud provider.
Yes, more or less, yes.
And is that part of the process? I feel like you didn't talk about that. Is that just because that part is like easy and already solved and not the new thing that you're providing? I'm just not aware of how easy that is.
It depends on how you're really using Crossplane, because this is how I'm using Crossplane, like doing this cluster management cluster, and like 2 steps, maybe someone doing differently, but at the end of the day, in other environments, it's not public, so I just don't have it now here. But the idea is I'm putting, for example, I'm splitting this file. So I'm splitting, I just bootstrap until here, and this splitting this somewhere else. You have one source of truth for management cluster. The cluster itself can manage it. can use it. The Bootstrap can use it. So, but this more or less the idea. You can use any files. You can use. I said I prefer actually using Argo CD, but just want to make it more clear and straightforward. So Argo CD actually will read whatever you put in the PR. So in your new repo, and it will automatically deploy. You just need a cluster. And this is, again, Argo CD also cloud native and needs a Kubernetes cluster to work. There's so this tool could be helpful also for Argo CD. So or this pattern is not a tool. I hope this answers your question.
And another sorry, another question I had was like I think you mentioned that is this something that you've done multiple times, like to bootstrap, multiple of these management clusters, or is the idea that you would bootstrap the first management cluster and then use that management cluster to then bring up and bootstrap other management clusters if you want to do some sort of sharding or isolation or whatever?
Yes, that's the idea. That's I usually bootstrap once management cluster, and then bootstrap again. But for sometimes I had some problems in my this management cluster, and I know how to fix it, but I found it's easier to bootstrap it using this way. So it's super easy. And I simply deleted the cluster and bootstrap it again, and that was much easier than fixing the actual problem, because if my cluster was everything 100% automated, 100% infrastructure as a code, so bootstrapping it again wasn't that problematic. So, but the idea, what I'm doing, bootstrap once, and then from this management cluster, I manage different resources and even different Kubernetes clusters.
Right. Awesome, dude. That's super cool.
Cool, yeah, and I also created this logo and this space shuttle but Crossplane on it, Crossplane logo here. So yeah, every project should have a logo.
Yeah, you a future in graphic design as well, Ahmed. Cool. Well, awesome, man. Thanks for sharing this with us. Does anybody else have any questions then before we move on?
Yeah, also if you want to take a look on Cube Zero, it's really early development phases, but this is the idea. This is what I'm doing. I just want to make it public and easy for other people to use. And the problem is always like small teams. Everyone creating some tools are great for scalability and all of these things, but not for small teams and small companies. That's why I started Cube Zero, so another open source project that simply using Argo CD, Crossplane, vClusters to do exactly what I said, but for everyone. I don't want developers to work with Terraform because they hate it. Every time I ask them to do something with Terraform, they don't like it. But when I send them, okay, you can create this resource with Crossplane, they are fine. This is just another YAML in Kubernetes file, and they like it much more Terraform directly, like HCL and all of these things. So this is the idea. That's actually why I started all of these things, but it's open source and but it's a super early phase.
Awesome, dude. Super cool. Also, yeah, thanks again then for taking the time to, first contribute that and to build it, but then come here and share it with us as well. Super useful to see that. All right, cool. Then let me check the agenda doc again. That was the last item that I had put on there, and it looks like it still is the last agenda item. So if do folks have any other agenda items before we go ahead and adjourn for the week?
Hey, actually, this is my first time at the meeting, so I'm Michael, by the way. I'm from Guidewire. I had one question I wanted to ask, just kind of, I guess, a discussion, as well as not entirely sure what y'all's thoughts are on this. So we're having an issue with it's the current implementation of, from what I could find, what I looked into, it's actually by design, but the way that XRs communicate with the MRs. And so what we're having happen is, let's say you create your XR and you pass in everything that's valid, you pass your parameters and for our case, let's say you're creating a DynamoDB table and you put in your region into that, and it's technically valid, right? And you pass that on, but then when the MR fails to create, it'll be stuck. The XR will be stuck just waiting for that managed resource to get back with and tell, here's the managed resource, or that there's nothing there. But that never happens. And I think, by design, it's kind of Kubernetes design principle to keep the errors local to the resource that is erroring. But then how we're trying to think through ways of actually bubbling that information back up to the XR. We found a couple of ways of kind of like, we're using patches and to send that back, but it was kind of the way we were having to work around the status fields that we can't just pass it back as a status, because the XR has its own statuses that'll overwrite if there's a status coming through the composition. So I was curious if you have thoughts on how to do that, if there is a way that we just aren't aware of to manage those kind of things.
Yeah, really good question, Michael, and thank you for describing the situation there like pretty effectively, because I know exactly what you're talking about now. So thanks for that communication there. So dude, that sounds exactly like the big design that is being driven by Dalton right now, which helps you so improve surfacing of errors up to claims. Like if something's happening down in an MR, the composition author, the at the XR level, being able to decide what information is useful or reasonable to display up to either display on the XR itself or up to the claim. Like this is exactly what this is solving here. In a general way to make this more possible and easier for folks. So I would suggest take a look at this issue, and is it this? I think this is the design here, and it's actively in progress right now. I think Nick and Dalton like talked about it just yesterday. We're like, in the thick of it right now about how this should work, what the experience should be like. So I'd recommend reading through this, and then with your opinions, like you have this problem. So if there's a way that it would be more helpful to you to surface it or whatever, this is the time to do it while the design is being discussed. And I think you'll have a good informed opinion on it, man.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I appreciate. I didn't see that PR when I was looking, so I'll definitely go look through that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Cool. Anything else, folks, or go ahead and call it now? All right. Well, super awesome to see everybody. Ahmed, thanks again for showing off the Crossplane Bootstrapper. Good to see everybody here, and we should have 1.16 out by the next time that we reconvene next month. Bye, everyone.
Great,
See ya.
thanks a lot. Bye-bye.